So here are the chipboard pieces you need to cut for your project. Now I've used 1.5mm chipboard here, and start off with a base, which is going to be 10.5 by 7.75 inches. And then you'll notice I've already taped some of these just to save some time later, but don't worry, I'll show you how to do that on the base in a second. You're going to need 2 long pieces for your box to go up this way. So our base was 10.5 inches. So our long side is actually going to be 10.5 plus whatever width your chipboard is. So mine was 1.5mm. So I've just added 1.5mm on, or I just go 1/16 of an inch bigger. So 10.5 plus 1/16 of an inch by 2 inches tall, and we need 2 of those. Then you need the short sides. Again, our box is 7.75 across, so we're just going to add on that little fraction, the width of our chipboard, the thickness, by 2 inches. Then we need our vertical divider. Our vertical piece is 8.5 by 1.75, so it's not as tall as the main box side. And then our horizontal one is going to be 7.75 by 1.75. And then we'll have a little wrap around. So we're going to need 2 covers, 8.25 by 11, and a spine, which is 2 inches by 11. So I don't need them for the main box as of yet. So I'm going to put them aside and just bring in my base, sides, and my dividers. I'm going to show you how to use the tape method here, but you can also use construction strips. Now a construction strip is just a piece of cardstock which is 1 inch wide, scored down the middle, so it's at 1/2 inch on your scoreboard, and just tape put on both sides, and then you just fold it in half like so. Now I'm going to be using construction tape here, but I'm also using the tape method. Now the tape I use is frame tape or tiger tape by CoolKatz, and it's like a papery type texture to it. So it's not glossy or anything, but it's also quite strong because it's used for framing photos, photo frames and things like that. So that's the tape I've got, but as I said, you can use construction strips instead. So before I start, I'm actually going to do a couple of marks on my base. Now from the right hand side, I want to come in 2 inches. So I've got my square ruler here. I think these are quite cheap on Amazon. I'm just going to mark 2 inches in and 2 inches in. Just line them up. And I'm also going to do the same from the bottom of my base. So again, at 2 inches. You can see I really do try and keep measurements as easy as I can. There we are. So that is where my divides are going to go, leaving a nice big space in the top left hand corner for my album. So how did I wrap these in tape? So here's the tape. I need to try and find the end. Here we are. And I'm just going to pull a nice long piece. I'm just going to hook it on this so it doesn't roll. And I'm going to take my chipboard upright and I'm going to place it down the center of the tape. Now you don't have to be precise at all. So I've just started on the base about halfway across, and I've just placed it on the center, and I'm just going to tip it over and keep it going down the center. Get some contact. Now pull it across. Just be gentle because you don't want the corner of a chipboard to tear your tape. But it is quite strong stuff. And if you do tear it there, that's okay. You just cut it off at that corner and you just carry on. We're just going to wrap the whole piece in tape. Now I'm using my Tim Holtz titanium scissors here. Just helps cut without being so sticky. There you go. So right now our tape is still sort of upright, so you need to be quite careful. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors. I'm just going to cut a little V, a little notch towards each corner of my cover. Now remove that little V of tape from your scissors each time, otherwise it will stick to another piece of the tape and then you won't get your adhesion later on. Now this is easier when you're not trying to get it on camera. Because you can twist and turn it the way you want. So I've done this side. You've got to be really careful that you're holding the center, not squashing down your tape, because it is sticking up on both sides, remember. Here we go. I'm going to do the other side as well. Make sure I remove these notches. And the last one. So I've done a notch on all 8 corners, the 4 on this side and 4 on the back. I'm just going to hold it upright to start on my shorter length, and I'm just going to press it down, make sure it's stuck down, and then from the center I'm just gently going to pinch it over the edge. So it's not touching down yet, I'm just getting the contact to get that nice crisp edge. And then once I've got the contact, I start in the center and just work my way out. And again on the other side, I'm just going to press it down to get that contact, start to gently pinch it, see if I can get a better angle for you. You see I'm just pinching it onto the edge. It still hasn't stuck down because I haven't touched that bit. And then from the center, work out. Now you may end up with a little crease or something, and the glory of this tape is it doesn't matter. And the last one. Now I've done this a lot. Don't believe that it looked this neat the first time I tried it. It took practice. It took time. And if I show you now, I've put some creases in there. I'm just going to take my Teflon tool and I'm just going to iron them out, so to speak. And you'll see those creases are now totally flat. Let's see if I got any. See, you've got some here. So I'm just going to iron them out. And you get a nice crisp corner all the way around, and a nice smooth flat edge then for decorating on. So that now is my base, and I did exactly the same with my horizontal strips and my sides. So it's exactly the same process every time, wrapping around, cutting out the notches, and then ironing them all down. And now we're going to start building the box itself. So I'm going to start on the long box, and again I'm going to use my tape to construct. I'm going to take a piece of tape just a bit longer than my base. Now I've got to make sure, usually it doesn't matter when I'm doing my boxes, but because I'm putting those dividers, I've got those lines, I need to work on the back. Now you can see I've just lined it up, so it's half onto the tape, but I've still got some sticky there showing up. I'll do the same on this side. So I'm just going to lift this up and get it stuck down there. I'm going to do the same top and bottom as well. So that's long enough. Let's just, might be easy if I just move around. There we go. And again. Here. So now I've got my base all taped around. And I'm just going to take my scissors. This is where your titanium ones come in handy because they don't stick as much. I'm just going to cut, not a very sharp angle, just so it's a little bit more than 90, but not too much. So cut towards the corner at a very slight angle. So that would be straight in line with the base. I just want to angle it just a tiny bit. There we are. That just saves some of the bulk on the corners. Okay, and again. And the last one. It's quite hard to get things in shot here because this base is actually quite big. So there we have our base now with the 4 sides taped up. I'm going to take one of my long strips. Now remember, this is slightly longer than our base. So when I line it up at the bottom, it is actually going to overhang just the tiniest amount at the top. So I've just stuck it, butted it up against my base, and placed it down upright, down onto my tape. I can then fold it down and you'll have that tiny gap there. So why have we got that little extra bit? Well, when we come to do the next one, it'll butt up against that and give you a nice even join. So this time, with my short side, I'm going to line it up to my base, so ignore the long side, line it up to the edge of the base. Make sure it's touching all along and it'll overhang here. It's hard to see because everything's black on black for you. There we are. So it's touching my base, and then as I let it drop down, it'll open up that tiny gap here, ready for bringing them back up. And you see that extra bit then makes that join match. So let's just keep going. Same process, line it up on this side, make sure it's touching all the way, it's upright, I've got some adhesion and I'm just laying it down flat. And then the final one, the last short side, there we go, and down. And now what we're going to do, we're just going to bring the whole thing up. And we're going to take our tape and just tape these outer edges. So you can see there is absolutely no glue whatsoever in this method. So it's a much cleaner style. So we're going to bring them. I'm going to put the tape down, and then I'm going to fold it up, and I'm just going to cut a V shape like so. I'll try to show you better once I've done one of the sides. It'll be much easier to show. Okay, so this is overlapping this way. So I'm going to take my tape and you could put, what you can do is put it on upside down so the sticky bit is up, so you can get a piece the right height. Fold it, obviously sticky side outwards, and cut towards the fold at an angle. So you get a nice mitre. And now I'm going to put it on. Put the point towards the bottom. Make my join and stick it over. So I've got one here as well. So you don't have to do the mitered corners because you are going to cover most of it, but it is a nice little finishing touch. That's where it's overlapped is the top, so this other one tucks in underneath. Hold it there. If you wanted to put a dab of glue on that edge, you can do, but you don't need to. It doesn't need it. A bit long. Cut out the V's. Line it up. There we have your box all constructed. Now you can strengthen it even more by taking your tape. So this is the open bit now. I'm working on the top. So you can strengthen the joints by going all the way around. So you've got half the tape touching the chipboard and half just exposed. Just cut it off. And then cut very thin V shapes towards the joint. And the last one. and then just fold them over. And then that's just sort of wrapped the entire top into one long piece of the tape, just for strength. And if you do have a little crease like I've got here, you can just squeeze it out again with your Teflon tool. Just get it all burnished down, make sure it's all stuck. And that's your box. If you just wanted to make a simple box, that would be where you stop. You could make it into a drawer or something like that. But that's the basics of how to build a box using the tape method. As I said, we're going to go one step further today. We're going to put some dividers in. So I'm going to bring in my vertical and my horizontal strips. Now I did say you can construct the box using these strips as well. You would just need to put the tape on the other side. So double-sided tape would be inside. And where you have your two pieces of chipboard, you just take your construction strip and you can stick them together like that. And then you'd put extras on the top and things like that. And you can build it like that. And I know on the Vectoria Designs YouTube page, there are examples of that method there. Right. So this is my construction strip now for putting in. Let's do the vertical one first. So I'm just going to cut a strip the length of my divider. And I'm just going to take my tape. I'm just taking a little bit off and folding it back, just in case I need to move it later on. And lining it up on the bottom of my, let me expose a bit on this side as well. Just fold it back at a 90-degree angle. So it's stuck on both sides. This middle bit isn't stuck, so I can hold it in place as I just pull out my double-sided tape. And that'll help it now just to stand up on my box. So I'm just going to have a little mark. Now I didn't do this at the beginning because it isn't actually 2 inches because of that extra little bit. So here's my 2 inches, just so I've sort of got a rough guide of where my 2 inches is going to go. Gonna put, I forgot to put, I want to put a construction strip on the other side as well. So let's just cut another one. This time I just took it all off and sticking it on. Now this time it's a bit long with me, so let's just trim it. I'm just going to angle at the same time. Again, let's angle these two, just so I'm reducing the bulk in the joins. I'm just going to take one out, hold it, my sticky bit up, and I'm going to line it up just touching on the top of the box, and I'm just lining up with that line I drew earlier. I'm going to press it down, fold it down. I can now take off the other one. And bring it up and press it down. So right now it's stuck to the bottom, but if I was to put something in, it would still fold. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some construction strips into this bit here. So these were 1 3/4 tall. Let's just cut it at 1 3/4. Here's where my join is. So I'm just going to angle it. So when I open it up, it looks like that. Again, that's just to reduce the bulk. I'm going to take both off this time, and I'm going to put it in place. And you can see I've just put that construction strip into there. I'm going to do another one now on this side. And just angle them. So just take it, place it into that corner and open it up. And we've got our vertical divide in place. Now when we do our horizontal one, I don't put my construction strip all the way across because it's going to knock onto there. So it's going to go there. So I've got to think of it as 2 separate pieces on that side. So I can do one full one on the bottom. Let's just fold it back. Let's just stick it onto there. You can see how it wasn't being precise with the measurements. And I'll need one just under 2 inches. So just go slightly under, just so I don't bump into anything. Okay, and just miter it. And this time I'm going to place it on that line. And get my fingers in. Oh yeah, because I haven't stuck it down yet. Let's stick this one down first. So I'm using that line I drew, but also butting it up against this one. There we go. And just bring that bit up. I think I'm going to need one more construction strip so you can see how I make them. I'm just going to bring my trimmer in. I'm going to cut it at 1 inches. Your scoreboard. Just go all the way down at half. So it's easier to make long strips and cut them to the size you need, rather than do lots of little ones. Now this is where I've sort of got the valley of my score line. So I'm going to work on the back. Put tape each side of that score line. There we go. Let's bring back my base. So I'm just going to roughly measure to there. Fold it down. You can use your burnishing tool. And now just slot it into that space. Take off the other strip, bring it up to meet it. So we still haven't got anything holding them here. So they're stuck down nicely. Now we need just some strips. Or are they 1 3/4? So just make them a little bit shorter. That's 2 inches. There's 1 3/4. So take off from both sides, slot it in, bring them to where I want them, and stick. And again, let's use this shorter one for now. There's 1 3/4. Take off both sides, tuck it into the corner. There we go. And I'm going to do the same now on these two, so we're connecting them to the outer one. So, let's just use that as a template. Why didn't I just do that the other times? Place it in. One more there, and into the corner, open it out. I think I'll be able to get away with this one. Oh, where's the last one? Here we are, this one. Here. So that's then the box constructed, all ready to be decorated on the inside. Get rid of some of those tiny bits of tape. But we're going to cover it as well. So that's just my normal album cover. So if you've seen me covering an album before, let's just take the two covers. Now I'm going to do this in the album tutorial as well. So I might go quickly this time, and I'll do it slower in the album one. So just going to put it down the middle of my tape on the two short sides and one long side. Cut it off at the end, just like we did with the base of the box. We're just going to cut those V's. And the other side. And this one. And then I just take my Teflon tool and burnish it all down. That's one cover done. Let's do the other one. Again, just placing it down the center. On my short side, this is my long side. You'd obviously take a bit more time than me. the more precise you are, the better your finish. We're just going to get on with the tutorial here, don't we? And just like we did before, we're just making the contact on the two short sides first, getting a little bit and then pressing it down, burnishing, starting to maneuver it over. So you can see how quick, once you've done it a few times, you can get going pretty good. And then our spine, we're going to have some exposed there, so I'm just going to cover it in tape just to get a nice finish. So just cut it a little bit shorter than the width of your spine and flip it over. Again, a little bit shorter than your spine and half on and flip it over. Now this is where it's going to be slightly different to our albums now, because I don't want a double width gap between my cover and my spine this time. So I'm still going to put it on and half off like that. And usually I would put this on here, and you'll see me do this in the album one later on. And when you bring it up, you get a space which is twice the thickness of this. But today I want it as a box. So I'm going to bring this up at 90 degrees, and I'm going to bring my spine to meet it. So then I've only got that single space there because I only want this gap to be the height of my box, because the spine is 2 inches and my box is 2 inches. So then they will lie one on top of each other by doing it like that. Okay. So you want your spine, so this is where this chipboard's coming, and then the spine is meeting it like so. And we're going to do the same now with the other side. Here's my tape. Longer than the height. So now I'm going to place my cover onto it, and I'm going to bring this up and just bring this to meet it. So I'm just lining up at the top. And open, stick them down, make sure they're spread apart. And close. So just to finish it off, I'm just going to cover my join there, because I am going to see a little bit of that later on after I've covered. This one I think you are going to see, but I think it's just the finishing touches part of me. There we go. And I'm just going to work them into that gap. There we are. So that now will be a little wrap around for the box, like so. So let's take our strong double-sided tape again. I've just got the base of my box, so this tape is just going to hold it for now. And I'm going to bring in my Cosmic Shimmer Acrylic Glue. This is nice and strong and dries clear. This is what's going to hold it in place a bit more permanently. Okay, here's the glue. So when I'm putting it in now, make sure it's the right way up. I'm going to bring my spine up and I'll have a gap at the top and the bottom, just a slight. So I want to try and even it up. And now the sunshine's come out just to make it a little bit trickier. So I'm centering it up against my spine edge there. So that is going to work. There we are. And now let's just, now if you've put it on and you find you've got a bit too much of a gap here, like I have, you're not going to get that contact to glue. So what we can do, we can take some of our chipboard and cut a piece which is just smaller than our spine. It doesn't have to be an exact size here, just smaller than 2 inches. Can you see how there's just like a slight hair's breadth between my spine and my box? Now if you just want your box to flip open like that, that's fine. I'd leave it as it is. But if you want your box to be hinged here, you might want to do this. So this is now smaller than my spine, no specified size. We're just adding a thickness in between. And this is not going to be seen at all. But if you left it with just the grey board edge, you would see. Now I'm not worried it's too short because that's going to go on my bottom. I'm just going to just notch here now. I'm not going to take time doing the V's, because I said it's not going to be seen. Just go into the corners. So that's all that black's doing, is hiding the raw edge so you don't see it down the left hand side. And I'm just going to take this and some glue. To here. So now when these come together, this is actually going to glue onto this. So I'm just going to put my tape onto there. So that's going to hold it for now. It's nice and strong as well, so it will hold it there while the glue takes hold. So now, when I bring them together, because of that little extra piece, I've got a bit of a closer finish there. Okay, so if you've got a gap, no panic. You can see why I taped up that extra piece so you wouldn't see that grey raw edge showing there or there. It's all nice and camouflage. So that's your box, all done and ready to decorate. Now, I haven't given exact dimensions for inside here because it really does depend on how you have affixed this and things, and if you're a little bit off. So it's easier to work off what you've done than to have a specific measurement. So let's start with a piece for the bottom of our base. So I'm going to go for this one again. And our base was 10.5 by 7.75. So I'm now going to cut this at, so it was 10.5, so I'm now going to go to 10.25, just a quarter of an inch. So, oh, actually, what, I'm going to keep the top, I think. 10.25 by 7.5. Now that's how big it would be if I was just going to be placing it straight down into there. But obviously we've got those dividers to work around. So what I'm going to do, that hasn't had time to dry yet, so let me try and not to play with the box a bit too much. So our bottom divider was 2 inches up. So I'm just going to go, let's just measure. As I was saying, it's easier to measure from your box. Yeah, 1 3/4. From the bottom. Nearly trimmed it off the top. I would have had my papers upside down. Okay. So that piece now is going to glue inside the bottom. So I'm just going to bring in some of my black soot distressing, and this will just take away that white raw edge. It also gives it a bit more of an aged effect, which works well with these papers. So that now is going to go in there and touch the divider. So I'm going to place it in. I've got a little black border down the left and right hand side and the bottom, but it's touching the top divider, the top of the divider here. Just going to take my tool and squeeze it in there. Now I'm going to do the same with my right hand piece here, 1 3/4. The sun has just decided to come out to play, so sorry for the shadows. Make sure it's the right way up. And we're going to glue this so it's touching my 2 dividers again. So I'm slotting it here. Now this piece now is going to be too wide to go there, because of this divider bit here. So I'm just going to trim a little slither off there. So I'm going to trim it to about there. So it's about a bit more than 16th, but not quite an 8th. So it literally is by eye with me here. And that'll just help the pattern continue as well. I think we need a little bit more off. And it's going to stick in. No, thank goodness. Just a tiny slither again. There we go. Again, just bring in my black soot. Again, touching these pieces here. And there we have the pattern now continuing through our divide. Try and get the right place for you. There we are. So that was the trickiest piece. Everything else now, you're just measuring rectangles and make them 1/4 of an inch less. So this is why I'm not going to give you measurements for this, because if this is a little bit off and things, you might just have to adjust your measurements slightly. I'm just going to close the blinds so try and get rid of the shadows. Maybe that's a little bit better. And for the lining, I'm just going to use this one here. So I'm going to cut, I've got 2 pieces here ready to go. So some of the strips were 2 inches tall, so I need them to be, oh no, that's not paper. I've only got 1 sheet here. Let's have a look. 1 3/4. Cut off the white edge. So this is now the inside. So let's have a look. I want one which is just 5 1/2, so 5 1/4. Black soot. Place it inside there. And you can see how it all just ties in nicely there. The colours match really well. It's got a nice long piece down this left hand side, so I'm just measuring from the top to where my divider ended up. So I'm going to do it just a tad over 8 1/4. Need another strip then. So 8 1/4, just a little bit. You can see I'm very specific on just make it up. Just a tad over 8 1/4. That long one there. here's my Teflon tool. So what you can do, you can just press it down. There we are. A couple more of these strips. I think I'm going to need quite a few more, so let's cut them ready. So if there's 8 1/4 there, I think I'll need just over 8 1/4 here as well. Yes. 8 1/4, just a little bit extra. It's so much easier than going into 16ths, isn't it? So I'm keeping the smaller bits until last so I can use the offcuts. Otherwise you find you need to print off another one just for one long strip. So that's this one. And again, take the Teflon tool inside, press it down. We've got 2 little bits down here, which are going to be just under 1 3/4. Should I cut them both at the same time? 1 3/4, just underneath it. Right, so I'm going to carefully so I know which. This is the try and keep it so the top is always at the top for me. Because they're very similar in size. So you can see I've just done that little tiny one down in the corner. This box is so big it's hard to keep it in shot. So that's the top. Try and keep that along the top so when I come to the box I know it's the top of the box. So I'm putting it into this little piece here. And I've got this bottom piece left to go. Now this should be a standard size, 7 3/4, so 7 1/2, because that is the width of the base. So you can see these bits were not things I could prep beforehand because it really does depend on how accurate you have been, and it is a little bit of a change as you go type thing. And I've got one more piece up there. I want a piece which is 1 3/4. Again, it's hard to know which was the top, but I think they're both 1 3/4 this time. I'm just going to place it in there. So that's all my outer sides. Then I'm just going to do the same for the dividers. Now the dividers should be a little bit easier because we're just matting onto what we had before. So they were 1 3/4 by 8 1/2. So I'm going to do them 1 1/2 by 8 1/4. So let's get the 1 1/2 strip done first. And I know I'm going to need a few, so let's cut a couple. So they were 8.5, so I'm going to do 8.25. So now these ones are a little bit thinner because those dividers were dropped a little bit. I'm still just centering them onto there. Onto these. So this you can't really push down to burnish, so I'm just using the back, using my hand on the back and my Teflon tool inside, being extra careful. And now just going to do the same here, so 7.75. So we're not going to get it from that, so let's get another piece in. Again, 1.5. So 7.75 would mean I now want this at 7.5. And then the inside, as before, I'm just going to have to judge it. I'm not even using my ruler this time. Just speed things up. I just measured it by eye. Place it inside. Oh, that's one of the 2-inch ones. I wanted it 1.5. Let's just trim that quickly. I grabbed the wrong offcut. There we go. And then just one little tiny bit left. I'll just cut it there. And in we go. So that then is the inside of my box, all decorated. Just a case then of doing the covers. So this was 8.25 by 11. So I'm going to use this newspapery one. And again, it's just going to be 1/4 inch shorter than what we originally have. So instead of 11 tall, I'm going to do 10.75. And instead of 8.25, goes down to 8. Now when I did my 8, you'll see I've got a little tiny bit of the white still showing. That's where, when we use our distress ink, it's now gone. So you can tidy up your trimming as well. Now, you may notice I haven't got anything closing mine. But if you wanted to do a closure, what you could do at this moment, before gluing this down, is you could tie or glue some ribbon behind this. So you just stick some ribbon there and then glue this on top. Using the back of my hand here, quite a large surface so you can just use your hand. And then when we do the back, you would also put your ribbon there, sticking out to the left this way, and then you can just sort of tie it at the edge here. But I don't mind it just being as it is here. So I'm going to use this paper now for the cover. Again, 8 inches wide by, what was the height again? 11, wasn't it? Yes, 11. So we're going 10 3/4. There we go. Again, just taking my black soot around the edge. Taking the glue to the edge because you don't want it peeling up. And it's just a case then of doing a 1 3/4 by 10 3/4 there and another one on the back. But I think now you get the picture. And as I said, what you can do then is take some of these cutouts and you can start decoupaging it up. If you wanted to add some more details, you can sort of just start decoupaging onto this. But there we go. There's your Wizarding School box ready for your little pieces of whatever you want to put into it and space for an album. So if you want to see how the album is made and some tips and techniques and sizings for making the most out of your junk journal pages, I hope you'll come back and watch that, or if you haven't had enough already, stay tuned and we'll keep going.